Let's bring in NBC News White House correspondent Mike Memoli. Mike, good morning to you. So do we know how much attention President Biden actually paid to Monday's hearing, or was he given updates during this? And remind us what he said about these previous hearings.
Well, Stephen, the White House has been reluctant to talk too much about how much the president is paying attention to the Jan.6 Select Committee and its proceedings. But we know from the president's schedule yesterday that he was in the Oval Office having a meeting with the president of Ecuador while this business meeting was happening on Capitol Hill. Later, he had a Hanukkah reception in which he talked about the rise of anti-Semitism in this country. It's likely that the president was able to maybe take in some of the coverage of the hearing. He also likely would have been given a briefing on what transpired by some of his aides, but it's been clear throughout this process that the White House, whether it's in the campaign as it relates to impeachment or as president during this Jan.6 committee, the president has made clear he has a role to play and respects that Congress has a different role to play. The president has tried to lead in this respect by talking about what's at stake in this battle for the soul of America, and he's made clear that Jan.6 was a real inflection point during that.
And Mike, we know the recommendation that a former president be charged with a crime is unprecedented. So if the DOJ actually decides to formally bring charges against Trump, what kind of role could the current White House actually play here?
Well, at every step of the way, whether it's the appointment of Merrick Garland to be Attorney General, or a respected former jurist, or now with the appointment of a special prosecutor, we've seen the White House stress the independence of the Justice Department and that it has no involvement in any of its discussions or considerations about proceeding with charges here. We know, obviously, the Justice Department, as Danny was just laying out, would incorporate potentially some of the findings of the committee here. But I think what we're going to see ultimately from President Biden is a continued effort to focus on his role and to lay out what's clear in his view, that this battle for the soul of America continues. And we've seen him give these major speeches in public, especially in the run-up to the campaign. And it's likely, as we look to the second anniversary of Jan.6 coming up, that the president will also likely take that opportunity to weigh in again.
And if charges are actually announced, would you expect to hear from President Biden at that point, or would it be the anniversary?
Yeah, we've reported at NBC months ago that the president was considering giving some sort of major address once the Jan.6 committee wrapped up its proceedings. It's unlikely now, given the timing, the end of the year, the rush to try to get some final year-end business done. Of course, it's possible. Traditionally, we see presidents hold a year-end press conference in which he could weigh in on some of this as well. But I think what we see in terms of priorities from the White House as part of a recently just announced overnight $1.7 trillion spending bill, the inclusion of the Electoral Count Act. This is an effort to really try to avoid future Jan.6s in the future. Was it a priority of the White House? It's something that they're glad to see was included in the spending package.
More to come on that. All right, Mike Memoli, thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.